My name is John Daniel. I'm a student at Liberty University, and my assignment today is to present to you my interpersonal communication project. By way of introduction, communication is best viewed as the continuous, complex, collaborative process of verbal and non-verbal meaning making as delineated by Stewart 2012. He says interpersonal communication can be understood as one end of a continuum that has impersonal communication at the other end. In other words, you have interpersonal communication on one end and you have impersonal communication at the other. In terms of one of its main characteristics, we see again from Stewart, he says that the main characteristic of interpersonal communication is that the people involved are contacting each other as persons. That's what makes it interpersonal. Now, I had to set myself some overarching goals in this project, and this is stated as follows. This is to optimize my empathetic and dialogic listening skills with the view of making listening work for me while simultaneously developing and sustaining more meaningful personal and professional relationships. In other words, key here in this project is for me to develop relationship and at the same time achieve effective communication. Burley Allen likewise asserts that active empathetic listening mode can be a big step in making listening work for you. In other words, I see the aspect of making listening work for me as extremely important. Now, how do I enlarge my conversation? Here are some of the keys. I must be attentive. I must be listen from an okay attitude. I must indicate that I'm listening through non-verbal cues as well as by using specific door openers that help the communication process. And I must establish specific ground rules. How do I enlarge my conversation through connecting relationships? Now, Peterson gives some insight on this in terms of communion. He talks about love and acceptance. He makes mention of springboarding, which is the process of moving from what we consider a superficial discussion to a more serious discussion. And of course, it's very important that I make myself heard in the communication process. Enlarging the conversation, continuing. I have two specific things that I would focus on. One is I will enlarge my conversation by focusing on others, and I will encourage my conversation by encouraging next thing. In terms of ours, what we're referring to here is focusing on ours prepares the individual to respond and inquire in ways that make it clear that getting the meaning, that is getting to the meaning of what is being discussed in a mutual process. In terms of encouraging next thing, again, we are moving from one aspect of communication, of the communication process, from one to the other, This is the process in terms of next thing. Understanding my personality patterns. I have indicated in this presentation my strengths and my weaknesses, which here are self-explanatory, just to mention a few. Loyalty, friendliness, humility, my sacrificial nature, loving and kindness, dependable attitude are some of my strengths. Some of my weaknesses include passivity. I tend to be vulnerable, sometimes too patient, a people pleaser, and tend to be indecisive at times. Next. In terms of opportunities, there are tremendous opportunities that present in terms of my behavior plans, including that for leadership skills, human relations skills, and my conflict management skills. In terms of threats, I have to be extremely careful that I do not allow family invasion into my time. In terms of the expectations that people have of me as well, and not to get into a place where I am unwilling to move from my comfort zone and to take on additional risks. Interpersonal communication skill set. There are two graphs that are presented in this slide. This is graph one, and it shows that I am what we consider as a steady specialist. And as a result of that, I have to make specific recommendations to control my behavioral blends. And these are as follows. Reducing fear, increasing confidence, being more outgoing, being more assertive, and establishing a greater level of security as stated by Carpenter 2010. Graph 2 categorizes me as a competent influencing specialist. How do I control my behavior blends? Again, I guard against being judgmental. I avoid Bitterness and resentment, I step out of my comfort zone, as alluded to earlier. Tend to be thankful for in everything and take charge of whatever I am doing. Interpersonal communication barriers. What are some of these? Well, let's examine the nuance of hearing what you want to hear. We have a propensity to hear what we want to hear. In doing that, we basically have to look at proposed solutions, which are alluded to here by Bertie Allen, and he states that nonverbal are cues to help you figure out what is going on between you and the other person. It is important to keep in mind that we tend to interpret what we hear and see through our own internal filtering experiences. In other words, what we experience as individuals can cause us to react in specific ways. Next slide. The other nuance is perception, reception, and attention. What is this? Brian again gives us an insight that listening is a highly selective subjective experience. Information that conflicts with the listener's present ideas and beliefs may simply be turned out. That is, core beliefs and values can be discarded, and this can cause problems. So what is the solution? The proposed solution is active listening. Here, the goal is in active listening is to develop a clear understanding of the speaker's concerns and also to clearly communicate the listener's interest in the speaker's message. Noise pollution. Effectively, what we want to do in noise pollution is to reduce it and eventually to eliminate it. And a research study was done by the medical profession, and they came up with a very interesting conclusion. And it states that communication is deemed to be effective if it relates to the positive outcomes for one or more of the participants. In other words, our goal is effective communication. Internal noise pollution. In terms of internal noise pollution, these are some of the things that we must be wary of. Perception, reception, attention, hearing what you want to hear, and biased listening. Green flag words, again, is another one as listed by Bertie Allen in 1995. We come to external noise pollution. Again, the external noise pollution, we have importance of listening to nonverbals. We must pay attention to nonverbals. We must be aware of any discrepancies, and we must have a better quality information if you're to achieve our given objective. In terms of my personal action plan, we have a list here of some of the interpersonal communication barriers, which are self-explanatory. But in terms of empathetic listening, this is my development plan as stated by Peterson. Real listening gets us inside each other, and there seems to be something in such a human connection that touches and changes us. In other words, real listening connotes some form of nexting. There's a dialogical process that is being engaged here, and it promotes encouragement and collaboration. As alluded to in my overarching goal, I also spoke about dialogic listening. Here's the development plan as stated by Stewart. And dialogic listening also requires a special form of encouraging. Basically, instead of encouraging the other person to say more, what must do is encourage him or her to respond. It's a responsive element that is needed in the communication process. So when I put something on the table, I want it to invoke a response. I also want to make listening work for me, as stated in the plan and the presentation earlier. Now, Peterson states that feeling heard and understood has a lot to do with whether or not personal connection happens. We humans want to know that people care about us, value us, and take us seriously. In other words, my above average listening skills, these are some of my accoutrements, my listening skills, my loyalty, my caring, all these things engage the process successfully. So, in conclusion, what have I gleaned from this? What have I drawn from this? It says that more than one self-concept and becoming aware of one's identity issues is a critical process in the interpersonal communication nuance. Moreover, it's a contextual application of empathetic and dialogic listening creates the necessary framework and establishing the authentic relationships. From that, we have seen that there's a strategic approach to interpersonal communication. And I allude to this in this final statement. It says that this presentation provides a clearly defined personality element, and this is where we go as it relates to professional relationships. Thank you kindly for listening.